Hi there, I'm Stacey Ross. Welcome to the CHEK Spotlight, a special feature of Rising Economy Week, which we are very pleased to sponsor. This conference happening this week focuses on bold ideas and big challenges in our post-pandemic economy, and it's happening this week. Find out more and sign up for free at ourrisingeconomy.com. Today, we are featuring Mark Collins, President and CEO of BC Ferries, in conversation with Carrie Slavens of South Island Prosperity Partnership. On the table, BC Ferries plans to address climate change by developing the world's largest electrified ferry fleet. Carrie, over to you.
Good afternoon. Canada's transportation sector generates one of the largest shares of greenhouse gases in the country, second only to oil and gas. And with the climate crisis being such an urgent issue, it's no surprise that the race to net zero is a big topic for the upcoming Rising Economy Week 2021, a future-defining event that will focus on bold ideas and big challenges facing Greater Victoria in the 21st century. Today, I'm here to talk with one of those big challenges and one of those big opportunities with Mark Collins, President and CEO of BC Ferries, which operates, and Mark, you can correct me if you've grown since then, 35 ferries, moving about 22 million people a year. BC Ferries is the innovation sponsor of Rising Economy Week and the focus of today's Design Lab at the conference, which will bring together bold thinkers to help BC Ferries achieve its goal of leading the way on the transition to a low carbon future and accelerating the electrification of the fleet. Welcome, Mark. Great to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Carrie.
That's great. Well, you have been really outspoken on the imperative for BC Ferries to be a leader in transitioning to a lower carbon future. And you've set some ambitious goals, beginning with the island class ferries. Where are you in the process of moving to this lower carbon future, and what's needed still to realize that goal?
Yeah. Well, you said it all in your introduction, right? Transportation is a major contributor to greenhouse gas. So we have got to take it seriously. And BC Ferries has been working on this for the last 8 to 10 years. In the last decade, we've invested more than $800 million in low carbon technologies, and we're continuing to invest. So we've got a long way to go, though. 2030 is looming. We're trying to meet the provincial GHG reduction goals by 2030, and we've got to make still more investments. And we can talk about that a little bit later on if you like. But we're well on the road. Our new island class has arrived. These are hybrid electric ferries, and when fully built out and electrified, these are going to make significant reductions in the greenhouse gas emissions profile of BC Ferries.
Right. So right now they run on a combination of fuel and electricity. Is that correct?
Yeah, think of it like a Toyota Prius on the water. They do have engines on board that run on diesel fuel, but they also have battery banks. So the engines are not running all the time. And when we operate them properly, we get significant reductions in fuel consumption, which means significant reductions in greenhouse gases produced. Okay. But the real goal here is to operate those ships in all electric mode. So they were built to be fully electric. They're built with that future in mind. But we still need the shoreside infrastructure. Once the charging infrastructure is built out on shore, we can go to full electric, near zero emission operation.
Wow. Okay, that's significant. And I understand that alone would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 18,000 tons of CO2, or the equivalent of about 3,800 cars on the road a year. Is that correct?
Yes, and we think those numbers are actually conservative. We're working hard to beat those targets. We think we will beat those targets, but it's going to be at least that good. Mm-hmm. And the exciting part too is that's only half the island class vessels we need. We need another 6 to 7 of those. So there's every prospect of doubling those savings.
Okay, that's fabulous. And then beyond the island class program, what about electrification of the rest of the fleet? There's some very big ferries running out there. What does that look like?
Yes, well, I think it's 85% of the emissions, the GHG emissions from BC Ferries, come from our big ships. So while the small ships are important to work on, and we must work on them all the time to get their profile as low as possible, the big prize are the big vessels. And we're coming up to a major renewal project here. We have 7 big ships which need to go out of service by the early 2030s. And so we're looking hard at those. our ambition here at BC Ferries is to make those near zero emission. In other words, fully electric ferries. But I've got to say, I got to be cautious there because nobody has built a ferry this big, all electric. So these are amongst the biggest passenger ferries in the world today, and they're running on diesel. To electrify them is a huge technical challenge. But, I feel that if we don't strive for that goal, we'll never get there. So the idea is aim high and do the best we can to get to near zero emission.
Right. And, there is a whole movement right now, of course, to look at BC as part of the global sustainable blue economy. And that would be a fantastic accomplishment for BC Ferries and British Columbians if that could be achieved, or when that is achieved, I should say.
Well, we think so. We think there's absolutely an opportunity here to position BC as a leader in this, and not just a leader in the reduction of greenhouse gases, but in the leader in smart ways to get these projects done. And that's the focus of the Design Lab we're having here in partnership with the South Island Prosperity Project and the University of Victoria is, we've got to get to yes, quicker, faster, and bringing all stakeholders along. So the technologies are out there. The brains are right here in BC. The techniques are available. What we've got to do is find a way through the many, many stakeholder issues so that we can get on with building out these projects.
Mm-hmm. So really coordinating everybody. And you have said if we can get everyone lined up, they will be likely the biggest electric ferries in the world. So who needs to be involved? And aside from the Design Lab, where are you in the process?
Well, right now at BC Ferries, we've identified the funding for the vessels. The missing piece, of course, is funding for the shoreside infrastructure, the charging infrastructure. We've got to work on that. And we've got to bring along all those other stakeholders. There's everything from regulators, utilities, municipalities, First Nations. There's a host of people that go into these big projects. So we've got our part lined up. We're doing the engineering, and we're putting up between $800 million and $1 billion. It's the biggest investment BC Ferries has ever made in the coastal ferry fleet. So we're ready to do that. But we need to ask these other partners to come to the table. And frankly, we can't take 10 years to do it. The planet's not waiting for us. We just had a devastating fire season. We're seeing droughts and floods. I mean, Mother Nature's not waiting. So we have got to get on with this. So we need to ask these partners to join us in a multi-party approach to getting projects like this done.
Right. And are you hopeful? Have you had indications from the federal government? Are the signals positive so far? Where are you with that?
Well, there's no doubt that this project really checks a lot of boxes. I mean, everybody likes it, because it's exactly what governments want us to do. It's save, reduce greenhouse gases, helps prevent climate change. It's a cleaner, healthier, quieter. That's another important thing. Quieter underwater environment for our endangered species here on the coast. So there's no doubt it checks a lot of boxes, but we're still using a 1970s approval process. In fact, it's more complicated than it was in the 70s. There's multiple sets of consultations have got to go on, and public hearings, and multiple opportunities for parties to veto. Mm-hmm. There's like 50 vetoes out there. And so how do we get to yes in such an environment? I just think if we all come together and we concentrate, we say, look, we all want it to happen. Now, nobody wants to be put at a disadvantage while it's happening, but everybody wants it to happen. How can we find a multi-party way to make it go? And I'm really hoping for some fruitful conversations today.
Exactly. And I mean, one of the things that I think has really significantly changed our thinking about how fast things can go is the pandemic. We actually saw that processes can move fast when the urgency is there and the need is there. So I guess we'll see. And I know the people in Glasgow at the climate conference there are hoping so as well. So there's a lot at stake.
I couldn't agree more, Carrie. I mean, the pandemic opened our eyes. When we want to, we get up and get it done. There's no doubt. And we can see that there's a lot of positive benefits have come out of the speed with which our country and our society moved in that time. So we don't need to move quite as rapidly as an emergency like that, but let's take a considered approach with a determination to move more quickly. So, for example, in the normal way we work today, it takes 10 years for someone like BC Hydro to get a new transmission line permitted and built. A decade. That's too long. How can we turn that into 2 years or 3 years? That's reasonable. So we're not talking about the need to run roughshod over anything, but we are talking about, are we really focused on getting it done in a time scale that's going to make a difference to the GHG and the climate environment? So, I feel we can do it. We've shot the pandemic has shown we can when we put our mind to it. So let's go. Let's get her done.
And looking as well at shifting public opinion. I mean, from 10 years ago, public opinion is really coming on side, and it seems people are very much understanding the urgency of climate change and the need to get things done. As opposed to, we're not hearing so much about climate denial anymore, or that we have more time. So it appears the public will is also there, if I'm correct.
I absolutely agree with that as well. I mean, we're not getting any significant pushback on the aims or the necessity and the desirability of doing this. These projects get stuck in the weeds. It's the problem, and we need to lift our gaze, and we need to say, look, the big prize has got to get done, and it's got to get done more quickly. So no significant pushback from the public that I can see. In fact, what I see is people get upset if they think we're not moving fast enough. So we're anxious for people to know that there is a great objective here, that it can be a win-win-win all the way around, right? Positive for the economy, positive for jobs, positive for whales, positive for GHGs, positive for the climate, and it's positive for governments, because governments are under criticism for not investing or not facilitating these projects. This would be a globally significant investment in marine transportation in the direction that governments want us to go. I really don't see a negative here. We've just got to lift our gaze and stay out of the weeds.
Okay, good point. And what about other ferry fleets around the world? You're obviously monitoring what's been happening. Is this a global movement, or is BC really at the forefront?
It is certainly a global movement. I wouldn't put us at the forefront yet, but there's no reason we can't be. I mean, if we get this project, particularly this large, starting with the Island class and moving into the major vessels, we will certainly be at the forefront. In talking to my colleagues around the world, we see major investments being planned and some being executed in other jurisdictions. So the world is moving, the technologies are being created. We need to, it's not about keeping up, it's about making our contribution to stalling climate change. And we need to get going. We have the brains here in BC. We've got the techniques. We've got the money, and we've got the government. Let's say the government desire. What we need to see now is all parties, all multi-parties, take action to help bring that desire to fruition.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit more about this afternoon's BC Ferries Design Lab and what's going to happen there. It's a great idea. We're bringing together a whole bunch of thought leaders, some very bold thinkers under one roof for a concentrated period of time. Mark, what does that look like? What are you hoping they will achieve?
Well, the theme of the session is getting to yes faster. Because the problem, as I've been saying, is not the technology, it's not the brain power, it's not even really the money, right? Because we know that the federal and provincial governments have got programs in place for this kind of investment. It is navigating the permitting and approval and the getting to yes process. So while we don't control that whole process, and that we can't just wave our hands to the ferry operator and say, let's make it happen, we have to go through the steps. What we're doing with this design lab is bringing together as many players as we can that control those steps, all those vetoes out there that I was talking about. Get all those veto holders in the room and saying, look, is there not some way that we can do this better, smarter, faster?
Right.
And let's have a talk about that. The only way we're going to solve these challenges is through dialogue. And the design lab today is an attempt at fostering and promoting dialogue. And it's not just about BC Ferries getting its project approved. If we can come up with a process that satisfies all those veto holders out there, well, maybe we can use it on other projects.
Yes.
Because there's dozens, hundreds of good ideas out there that are moving too slowly because of this complex permitting and approval process. If we can find a faster, better, smarter way to do things, if there's no reason it couldn't be applied across a whole range of projects to the benefit of BC.
Right. And Mark, my understanding is that you are actually from the island, but you have also worked globally. So that gives you a really local perspective of what's at stake here, but also a global perspective on what the rest of the world is doing and the bigger impacts of climate change and all kinds of things. It's a really unique perspective to have.
Well, I hope so. I'm from an island. I should admit, I'm from the island of Newfoundland, is where I was born and raised. So I was born and raised on a
Oh,
ferry-dependent island, but I've
uh,
been living here on Vancouver Island for 18 years and in British Columbia for nearly 25. So soon I'll be local, I hope, here on the island. But I love this place. I've raised my family here. We're very, very invested in the success of British Columbia, and we just love it here on the island. And so we want the best for the island, and I try and bring that to my work. Over the years, I've lived and worked in Brazil and in Europe, and I've also traveled extensively as part of the marine business. And I've been into some corners of the marine business which are decidedly not clean, and I can see the destruction that the marine business is capable of causing to the environment. And that's what we definitely don't want. And we know how to do it better. And in Canada, we do it a lot better than many places. But we know the potential to move into an even cleaner industry. So I'm sure we have all the elements here in BC and on the island and here in the local engineering and technical and consulting communities here in the South Island as well to say this project is doable and we will get local benefit. We will get local job creation, local economic activity, local meaningful careers, locally clean air, and locally quiet waters for our local whales. So there's a lot of reasons to do this that benefit directly here in our neighborhood.
That's so fantastic. And, is there anything I wanted to ask you? Climate change is such a big issue, but I want to know how BC Ferries is doing. I mean, the pandemic it had a huge impact. I was on the ferry on Monday coming back from Vancouver. It was packed. How's ridership? How are things going?
Well, these are unusual times, the only word I can think of. With this outset of the pandemic, our revenue collapsed by 85% in the space of about 10 days. I mean, it was like nothing we'd ever seen before. And so those were difficult times. But we managed through them. We had some wonderful support from the federal and provincial government in terms of support for our revenue base so that we could keep services going for British Columbians. And now that I think as a society, we're starting to get a handle on how to stay safe with COVID, how to live with COVID. So we see now, I think, a gradual stabilization of, the rules, the rollout of the vaccination, the physical distancing, cleaning procedures. I think we're starting to see less volatility in the rules that apply to people in travel. And as a result, people have come back very, very strongly to the ferry system. And I think people like traveling on the ferry in this environment. You can stay in your car. A lot of people can. It's your car. You've cleaned it. It's a stable, safe place for you. And so they've come back in droves. We had the busiest August on record, I think, in the history of our company. And September, as a year over year, September always drops off a little bit as kids go back to school. But the busiest September year over year in our history. So we're seeing record traffic levels on the ferry system these days, which is wonderful because if that stability stays present, and we're still a little gun shy, but let's say that stability stays with us, then we have more stable revenues and we're able to make these critical large investments that are going to make a dent in climate change.
Right. And which is fantastic news. Is there anything else? We've got just a minute left. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about BC Ferries, plans for the future, interesting happenings?
Well, just that, climate change is a big part of our thinking, as is capacity. The other thing that's popped up, of course, when you get as busy as it is, people saying, well, can I get on the sailing of my choice? And we know that that's been challenges. So, it's a real interesting and challenging time. We want more capacity, we want more sailings, and we want to provide that. Yet at the same time, we want to do it all in as clean a possible way. So they're almost competing priorities, and we have got to find the smart way through that. So I'd like people to know that we're working on it. BC Ferries is 5,200 dedicated professionals, and what we do every day is try and provide safe and sustainable transportation, and we're going to keep right on doing that.
Well, that's fabulous. And I want to thank you, Mark, for being here today to talk about this really ambitious and vital initiative, the electrification of the ferry fleet. Rising Economy Week 2021 is a free and virtual, in-person and virtual conference, excuse me. If you want to join the conversation about Greater Victoria's future, find out more and register at ourrisingeconomy.com. Thanks so much for being here, Mark. We really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.